Stores are under pressure. There's rising theft, safety concerns, and the need to protect staff and customers without compromising ethics. In this episode, we're going to spotlight a game-changing solution, Auror's subject recognition tool. Kia ora, I'm Carolyn Young, Chief Executive of Retail NZ, and joining us today is Phil Thomson, the Chief Executive and co-founder of Auror, to unpack how this technology is helping retailers identify repeat offenders and prevent crime safely, smartly, and responsibly. We explore how it works, what sets it apart. So, welcome, Phil.
Great to be here. Thanks, Carolyn.
When you look at the retail crime landscape in New Zealand, how do you compare that to what you're seeing in other countries in like the US or the UK or Australia? What are we seeing that's similar or different?
Yeah, so we've been working in the retail crime space for the last decade, and unfortunately, crime has always been around. I think historically, it's been probably not talked about all that much publicly, and often seen as opportunistic. And I think what we've seen over time, and both here in New Zealand, but also right across the world, it's actually fairly organized. People are doing this as their full-time jobs to make money and to trade and buy and sell for drugs and other things as well. So the big shift I think we've seen in the last couple of years from that has been this increase in violence associated with retail crime. Historically, you'd see violence in retail stores here and there, but not necessarily tied to a criminal act, say like stealing. What we're seeing now is it's being used part and parcel of that act. So they're using it as a tactic to, threaten, abuse customers or staff to get out of that store with stolen products. And so, from a New Zealand point of view, we've seen, particularly post-COVID, that same issue, both with violence, but also with weapons being used as part of that too. And also a change of who's doing the crime. It's more sophisticated individuals, also more hardened criminals as well, who are changing from other types of crime into retail crime because they've seen it as an opportunity to target more places and also get more reward for that as well. And so when you look at the rest of the world, we see the same things. The positive part, I think, is that New Zealand, from a retail industry point of view, also engaging with police and government, have taken quite a tech-forward approach, and we're actually seeing the slowing rise of violence. Whereas if you look at Australia, you're still looking at often 20% plus increases in violence in retail stores each year. And in the US and the UK, you're seeing more and more weapons being used. In the UK, that's knives and bladed weapons. In the US, unfortunately, it's often firearms.
Yeah, and look, I think I know that in some of our stores, we are seeing more weapons, and that sometimes depends on the location and the type of retailer that's there. So what we do want to make sure is that we don't see that continued escalation that we've seen overseas. So look, tell us a little bit about what's inspired the development of Auror's subject recognition tool. And, how does it differ from traditional facial recognition technologies in the retail space?
Yeah, great question. And I think there's a couple of really key reasons for that. The first is that violence piece. Just that solid increase in violence over time has caused a couple of things. One, there's more discussion again publicly in the media around retail crime and shining more of a light on it. As part of that, it's really all about the people in the stores. The frontline retail workers, the customers who are seeing and it's impacting on them every day. And speaking to the executives of retailers, they know that they've got to have that front of mind for them, not just from a liability point of view, but actually from being a human and being a boss or a manager, you want to look after your teams. So that violence piece is one part of that. The second core reason is actually the technology has changed so much. And your question around sort of facial recognition, we've been tracking that technology over the last probably 10 years now. And it's only the last 2 years where the accuracy and the bias have changed significantly for the better. And a couple of years ago, I was telling people that they shouldn't be using this technology because it's not accurate enough. And that's changed now with this massive increase in technology. And so those two core parts meant that it was time for us to look at if we're going to do it, how will we do it? And we then took that to go, well, what's already used today, and again, that sort of traditional facial recognition space. And we just saw a whole lot of issues with how had been done previously. So we took it from a ground up approach of if we're going to do it, how we do this the right way that really protects, again, the people in store. How do you protect the privacy of the good, honest customer and shopper? Um, and then how do you get the better outcome into the point around, it's repeat offenders. It's organized crime, right? It's 10% of people,
Mm,
60% of the crime,
yeah.
and those repeat people are 6 times more likely to be violent. So if you can focus on those people, you're going to have a much bigger and better outcome right across the entire community.
So when you talk about that, just for a public safety perspective, I said in sense of that issue, you're really focusing on that high end of crime, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at particularly the violent piece, or the repeat offender, as probably the most common ones. It's not really, there's always going to be some opportunistic uh,
Mm,
theft. But from a retailer point of view and from a police point of view, that's not the focus. The
yes.
focus is on the 10% of people who are doing most of this. And again, they're linked more into the serious crime, into the gangs, guns, drugs, international, transnational crime. It's actually all fairly linked. And
Mm.
retail crime is almost the bottom of that pyramid, but it leads on to all the other serious crime.
Absolutely. Look, can you talk us through how subject recognition works in practice, from identifying a high-risk individual to alerting store teams? What safeguards has Aura built into the system to assure sort of ethical and compliant use of facial recognition?
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for us is that, if we're going to build this, how do we do it the right way? And how do you layer in a number of different safeguards along that whole process, to make it safe and secure for everyone? And again, where we've traditionally played has been in the reporting space. So how do you make it easier to report a retail crime? And that hasn't changed for us, but it means that from this process, you have a really good data set to start from. And so you're not creating what they often call watch lists out of thin air, or based on something they don't like. It's actually based on data of what's happened previously, and again focus on those repeat people or violent high harm offenders as well. So, to step it through quite quickly for you, first, as always, if a crime occurs, they're reporting that into the Aura platform. That then allows the generation of a review of those serious or high harm offenders to the right people within a retail organization, which is often an investigator or a senior admin person. Um, you then, from a retailer point of view, you can categorize that into your, high risk or extreme threats around, someone's known to carry a weapon and threaten staff, down to that, repeat person who's done multiple or thousands of dollars worth of crime. And so you get a range of alerts based on that list. And again, you've got the review process in place. So you've always got a human that's reviewing those things first to make sure that it's the right person and for the right reasons, that there may be an alert generated upon. Then you'd move into I call it the traditional facial recognition stage of how do you match a person when they walk into a store. And again, what we've done there is we've partnered with some world leading technology on that. Again, super high accuracy, very little bias as part of that as well. Um, and then we've done some really smart things from a safeguards point of view around not holding biometric data. So when someone walks into a store, it's reviewing that in real time. And if it does have a match, then it sends off an alert, and that alert includes an image rather than a biometric.
Mm,
If you're a good shopper, you walk into the store, instantly removed, deleted. That's never retained. So again, looking at how do we keep the 99.9% of people who are good shoppers, nothing changes for them in their day job. Nothing changes from a retail worker's point of view, other than the fact that they can get an alert now when that high harm person walks into store, and they can actually review that. So again, a lot of retailers now have review processes in place. And it tracks what happens there on the retailer side. So who's looked at it, who's confirmed the match, what's happened off the back of that to make sure that the right things are happening, the right training's been put in place for that too. So it's quite a seamless end-to-end process that doesn't take any more time from a retail worker's point of view, but adds in all these different safeguards in place to get the ultimate outcome of stopping, or providing the right information and intelligence to that person on the front line to stop that next high harm incident happening. And so if you know that the person's carried a weapon or been violent in the past, you're going to approach that person differently, or you might not approach them at all. And that's what it's really about, is actually giving that information to that person before something happens.
That triage, isn't it? It's right. One, you've got an alert, but two, what level of risk is this person to our staff in our store? And do we call the police immediately? Do we ask them to leave store, or do we monitor their movements in store, and anything in between all of those areas? So just gives you more information to provide a safe environment for your staff and your customers to go about the work that they would normally be doing in terms of store management. So look, thank you so much for joining us today, Phil. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you and hear how Auror is working with New Zealand retailers to reduce crime, which is such an important place for retailers.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. Happy to chat to anyone that wants to find out a little bit more.
Look, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to visit www.auror.co, auror.co, to find out more. Lots of information there, and someone can certainly help you with any advice that you've got around wanting to understand more about facial recognition. This is part of our Empowering Retail series, your go-to resource for short, actionable insights designed to take your retail business to the next level. Do watch out for other episodes, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, ka kite anō, bye for now.